Hey guys, how is everyone?
Doing great.
Yeah, doing well.
Dr. Cooper, Dr. Gupta, glad to have you guys on. Appreciate you spending a little time this afternoon with us.
Well, glad to.
Entirely a pleasure. Entirely. So we've had a lot of fun just pulling together this presentation. Sam and I have Sam, can I say this or should I not say this? Sam and I have a wonderful tit for tat kind of a relationship. We joke a lot, we laugh a lot, we tease each other a lot. So it's a very wonderful. I don't have any brothers, so Sam popped up in my life and he's my brother. He does everything that brothers do to sisters, annoying things. He does them and he does them so well. So,
and sisters do them back.
For sure. So.
Well, good. Well, again, appreciate you guys being on, and what a great time to be having our business college experts talk to us about what's going on in the world, the country, and here in the Southeast. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you. I don't know if we are going to cover all of that in the world and in our country and in the region, but we are certainly going to talk about how to make money and how to do things with your organization. So.
We're only limiting you to 25 minutes. Surely you can cover all that.
It's making a little warm in here.
Oh, Justine disappeared.
Yeah.
All right, David. Dean had to run out for a quick little errand, so it's you and I for a minute.
All right. Do we give it another 30 seconds here and give people a chance?
I think so. They're still popping in. I'm
still showing 2:59. There's 3 o'clock for us. So
we're at 19. We had a good amount registered, 50, 60 something people. So I'm sure we'll have more people popping in as we go. Let me get this first slide up, and then whenever you are ready, David.
Okay. Well, I will kick us off, and I'll first thank everyone for being on. Glad to see as many faces and logins as we have here. That's always great, and I'm always amazed at the success of the TATT chats and the monthly for Dr. Gupta, for Dr. Cooper. This is our monthly virtual connection arena that was born out of COVID, and we just couldn't give it up. And so we still do it. We do it every 30 days, and it really is just a great venue for so many different speakers of different topics to connect with the 10 counties of the upstate that make up 10 at the top. And so we're grateful to have representatives of the Johnson School of Business at USC Upstate. Appreciate you guys spending a little time with us. And so maybe without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Dr. Uma Gupta, to Dr. Sam Cooper. Welcome. We're glad to have you.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Uma and I are really pleased and happy to be here with you today. I've been on some of the TATT chats in the past and always enjoy them. So we're very happy to be part of this today. Uma is our director of the Master of Science in the Business Analytics program here, and that's a good program that we see some good growth in, and we hope will serve the upstate well. As we think about our topic today, we're going to talk about data monetization. We hope the topic is going to be interesting to you, and ultimately we hope it's going to be very useful to you. Seldom, I think, do we enter into any business conversation today where data is not at least mentioned, if it's not the primary subject of the conversation. So data is really, really important, and I think for good reason, because we have plenty of evidence now of companies that are very data centric that are being very successful. So data is a key asset in many dimensions, and we hope to talk about some of those today. So we often think of the data revolution as a current and very recent event, but really this goes back decades. It goes back quite a few decades, in fact, and we've seen it grow and develop over time. And so in some ways, it's a decade-old movement, or decades, not just a decade. And in other ways, we're at the very beginning of it. It's really a fascinating area to think about, to study, and to consider. So today we want to talk about data monetization, and whether you're a one-person shop or whether you're a large company, you probably realize that you generate data, and that data may very well be more valuable to you than you may recognize. And so we want to talk through that today and maybe help you understand the types of data you're generating and how you can make that economically beneficial to you. If you like, Justine, you can move to the next slide. Okay, our talk today is really going to be in 5 different components. We want to talk about data as an asset. Is it an asset or is it not? And if it is, how do we manage it? So that's one of the first things that we want to consider. Uma is going to talk about data is gold. So that may clue you into what we think about the value of data. You know, many people have compared data to the new oil, but that's really not a good comparison. And we may touch on some of those points as we move through the conversation today. Then we want to talk about approaches to monetization and data enrichment. There's data and then we enrich data. And so we want to think about how do we do that and what that may mean ultimately for the value of data. And Uma's going to also talk about strategies for data monetization. And then we are going to wrap up and entertain questions as we have time. Okay, our first slide. Is data really an asset? Well, we think of assets as coming in really 2 different forms, tangible and intangible. Where tangible assets are those physical assets that we can put our hands on, that we can touch, that we're accustomed to, and that we play with all the time. Intangible assets, they're very real also, but they're different. We can't really put our hands on them. Intangible assets can take the form of brands, of intellectual property, data, potentially. And so there's really these 2 different categories of assets, and we think both require and necessarily need management. This, I think, is an interesting table here. It's a look at S&P 500 firms for 3 different years. There were other years available, but I selected these years just to make the point of what's going on in terms of intangible assets versus tangible assets. If we look in 1975, S&P 500 firms, 83% of the value of their assets were in the form of tangible assets, only 17% in intangible. So it was very heavily weighted towards those physical, tangible assets. By 1995, a large change had occurred, and we see, in fact, that the value of intangible assets exceeded that of tangibles by 1995. But somewhat striking, I think, even to Uma and myself, is that by 2020, 10% of assets were tangible, 90% were intangible. So 90% of the value of assets were made up by things like branding, intellectual property, and data resources, among others. So given that there's such a large component of a firm's assets now in intangibles, and a big piece of that is data. So we are going to declare data as an asset at this point. We know that it's important that firms, whether they're one-person firms or large multinational firms, that they inventory their data and that they manage their data. If you think about it, for decades, probably as far back as the institution of business goes, we've had managers of physical assets. We've had managers that would manage the equipment and other types of tangible assets that we have, people dedicated to that activity. But how often do we see people dedicated to the management of data, particularly, as we're going to talk about today, the monetization of data? So you need a curator. You need somebody that's going to understand the type of data that you possess as a firm, and then measure that data, manage that data. Those 2 components are necessary prerequisites to the monetization of data. So those 3 M's are very important: measure, manage, and monetize. I want to talk about, or at least mention, a couple of categories of data. It looks like our words got a little scrambled here. They're a little close, but operational data, dark data, sensor data, open data, emails, images, video, and mobile, and there are other types of data, but certainly these are some really primary categories. Operational data really comes from our transactions. We all are familiar with that. It can be accounting data. It can be the types of interactions we have with our customers generate this type of data. And while I'm not going to talk about all of these types of data, I think dark data is an important category to talk about. Dark data, that is a term really that emphasizes that much of the data, maybe most of the data that we possess as a firm, is either not used by the firm or it's even unknown to the firm. So we generate a lot of data that we may not even recognize that we are generating. And so part of this curation process or the managing process is to work to understand what that dark data is and how it may be valuable to us. As we think about data that's not used or not known to the firm, this dark data category, in 2015, IBM did a study and determined that 90% of sensor data within organizations is never used. That's rather amazing, I think, that such a large percentage is not used. So we generate data in many ways. We all do as individuals, as firms, and that data tends to have value. So we're going to get into a little more discussion about that as we move through. But another point I want to make on this slide before we move on is that your largest or your biggest database isn't the one you own or manage. It's the one you don't own. All right, so just think about that quote for a moment, and we'll come back to that in some of the slides that are to follow. Okay, Justine.
So based on, I'm going to pick up where Sam left off, is to really recognize that data is gold. It is the best currency that your organization has. And you have a tremendous opportunity to really take this resource that's sitting hidden in many storage devices and to really leverage it in a way that it impacts your bottom line and it increases your competitive edge as well in the marketplace. So one of the things that when we read about surveys from CEOs that we recognize is that data is a challenge. Many CEOs and senior leaders do not trust the data that their organizations have. They still rely more on intuition and gut feeling and not always on the data, because the data is not something that is always complete. It's not always accurate. It's not always reliable. It's not always timely. It's not just a problem that one organization has. In fact, it is a universal problem. So Justine, if you could just go through a couple more of those. Thank you. So data challenges will remain a universal problem. Often we are under the impression that if we do X, Y, or Z, we can get the data monster under control, but that is not going to happen. It's because when we look at the volume, the variety, the veracity of data that's coming at us, more importantly, each of us, human beings, we have become data generators, whether it's through your Apple Watch, or whether it is your GPS, or whether it's all the things that you do on your phone. Each one of us is a generator of mass volumes of data. And when you look at that, and when you look at how it's coming at the organization from all directions, data will continue to remain a huge problem for senior leaders. And while we may never be able to put our arms around this monster, it becomes exceedingly important that we have some control over the data that is coming into our organizations and leaving our organizations. So often when we think of the word monetization, we think it means to some extent selling the data that we have. To some extent, this is true, but this is only 50% of the equation. There are many organizations that are limited by regulatory restrictions, It could be their data governance. It could even be their mission, vision, values. They're not allowed to take the data and turn around and sell it. So we need to look at data monetization in two categories. One, for some organizations, you have the opportunity to increase your profits through new products and services that rely on data. The newest word in the business dictionary, if you will, are data products. What can a company do to create products that are not physical products or services, but actually data products? And you can do this by collaborating with your partners. You can do this by collaborating with your suppliers. You can even do this in some cases by collaborating with your competitors, because by bringing together different data sources, there are opportunities to create products. So when we look at it from an organization's perspective, you can take your data and you can sell it to external markets. You can increase your profit through new products and services. Certainly customer engagement by analyzing social media. We can get a very good insight into the challenges that our customers face. For example, if you look at a bottle of shampoo, it's always white font on a gray background. And customers have really moaned and groaned about this, that this is not a very conducive thing when you're in the shower to really read about it, but it's there out. And so you can take that and you can really leverage that. You can even have a funny ad about it, but you can really leverage that to engage your customers in a more meaningful way. But there's also an opportunity, like today on the call, we have several nonprofits, community organizations. There may be other agencies that really cannot sell the data. But when we talk about data monetization, what we're really also talking about is taking the data that your company has and leveraging it to improve processes, leveraging it in such a way that we can have a measurable economic benefit on your bottom line. In other words, you're able to make decisions that are more effective, that are more efficient, your processes are more efficient, your employees are more engaged, it's easier to make the right decisions at the right time. So the internal part, how can we use data to leverage our internal processes, is really a very, very good place for most organizations to start. There's hardly an organization that can say we really use all our data in the most effective way. We all have opportunities to really improve on that. Next, please. So we don't have the time to dive deep into all of these questions, but here are some things that Sam and I would like to encourage you to think about. Number one, who will benefit from my data? And again, if you're looking at it from an internal perspective, think about the employees and the lack of data, the data vacuum that they may have as they are making decisions. So a key factor in data monetization is to focus with great precision as to who is that stakeholder in your organization that will benefit the most from focusing and by delivering data that is meaningful. The next thing is, why are we doing this? Very rarely organizations have the opportunity to step back and ask the question, why are we doing what we are doing? What are the processes that are dated? What are the things that we can do? Value add was something that Michael Porter, the management guru, he spoke about it in terms of a manufacturing setup, products, services. But today, there's a new concept is data value add. In other words, how can I move my data from data to information, to knowledge, to insights, to action? Often we think if we deliver insights, we've done our job, but really as analytics professionals, we know that our job is done only when the insights that we have delivered translates into action. So again, the other questions you can focus on, it's a way by which we filter down. We start from the top, we focus, and within that area of focus, we identify our niche, and then we can deliver the data that will be most useful to the stakeholder within that niche. Thank you, Justine. Next one, please.
So this slide, in some ways, overlaps some of the points that Uma just made. We've broken data monetization, or your ability to take your data and economically benefit from it, into really two different distinctions here: direct and indirect. Much of what Uma just talked about is the indirect, and I have that second here in this slide, and she discussed some of these outcomes, and you can see here using data to improve services or develop new products, things of that nature. We think this is very important probably for all of us in this conversation, because the use of indirect data, or monetizing direct data in an indirect manner, is probably where we are more able to operate, because direct sometimes requires a lot of resources. But indirect simply means we take data that we generate or that we can obtain, and that we use it to increase the value of products or services that we're producing. So we really think that as a group, we need to think a lot about this, and how can we use our data to improve our economic or revenue generating opportunities without directly selling data. But it may be that some of you are prepared to sell data directly. And this is what we call the direct approach to data monetization. It's transactions based. It's where we take data and we exchange it with another party and are compensated for it. Selling raw data, which is my second bullet point there under direct, is certainly a possibility, but it can be difficult to do, in that you have to find the market for that raw data. Now, when we think of raw data, we're thinking about data that has not really been processed. Analytics have not been run on it. It's simply the raw data. It may have value to some other institution, some other business. But finding that person may be difficult. One of the things that's developing are data marketplaces now that will kind of find those customers for you and engage in the marketing and the management and the transaction delivery of this, of selling raw data. But most of us probably are not going to tend to do a lot of that. You know, it's not as simple as simply pulling a couple of fields of an Excel sheet and selling them. I want to jump up to barter. I think this is a really interesting category, and bartering data for economic gain is something that you and I most likely do frequently, multiple times a week. And one of the best illustrations of bartering with data is when you go into a grocery store or any other store and you take that loyalty card that you have on your keychain and you hand it to the person checking you out. What you're doing, in essence, is you're trading your data for an economic benefit, probably a discount on some of the products that you have just purchased. But what you have done is you have exchanged data about your purchase patterns, the time of day you're purchasing, all sorts of patterns you're exchanging for that discount. And that company, that grocery store or other store, will use that data to make internal decisions and potentially sell that data to other institutions or companies that may be able to use that data. So that is a direct data exchange, and we probably all engage in that all of the time. So loyalty cards really is just simply an example of bartering with data. It's our own personal data that we're using. Another good case, and I think we may not have time to discuss it, but you may want to look at it on your own, is the barter of data and the exchange of COVID-19 vaccines to the country of Israel from Pfizer. That's really kind of an interesting situation where Israel bartered data back to Pfizer in order to get a better flow of vaccines during the height of the COVID pandemic. All right, what I want to do now is jump to generating data reports and subscription services, but particularly I want to talk about enhancing our data. And so, Justine, if you'll move to the next slide, please. Enhancing our data. Let's see, I don't know what year it would have been, about 35 years ago, Robert Waterman, in a piece of work he did, said this. He said, "We are data rich and information poor." 35 years ago, he said that. Can we say that today? I think we probably can. We've had an exponential growth in computing power, which helps us process data and turn it into information. But we've also had a tremendous and exponential increase in data itself. So how do we add that value? If we are data rich and information poor, how can we do that? Well, one of the ways that I think is not that difficult to do and that we can tend to do as individuals, or at least as companies that not necessarily companies with huge information resources, is combining our data with other data. Now, this other data can take many forms. And if we go back to the quote that we had on one of the earlier slides by Doug Laney, that the largest or the biggest data set that you own, or how was it exactly he phrased it? The biggest data set isn't the one you own and manage, it's the one you don't own. Well, that's where we can go to combine with our own personal data to enrich it. There is a site which you're probably familiar with, data.gov, and if you go to that website, there are over 240,000 data sets that are made available for open and public use. It's a fascinating website. There's data there on just about anything and everything you can imagine, whether it's banks that are failing, the distribution of electric vehicles throughout the country, all sorts of demographic data, traffic patterns data, crime data, everything you can imagine. So at that website, there is quite likely something that you can combine with your data, which increases the value either to yourself or to someone else. In either case, we're looking at monetizing or gaining economic benefit from the data. So to seriously consider looking at other data sources that you can mesh with your data to create a unique data set that has value. The second point is analytics. And it looks like our analytics somehow in the transfer of the file, the words got messed up a little bit, but the analytics process really contains 4 different components: descriptive analytics, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. And if I had placed this arrow within an XY coordinate so that we have the Y-axis, the vertical axis representing value, and the horizontal axis representing difficulty or sophistication of analysis or increased skills that are needed for the analysis, what we would see is that as we move up to higher levels of value, typically it takes more resources to generate those higher levels of value from the data. Descriptive analytics basically looks at historical data and says, this is what happened, and summarizes that data through some basic statistics and say, this is what happens. Diagnostics say, this is why it happened, and it may help us understand the present. Well, that's good to know, but it's probably even more useful to be able to predict the future or at least attempt to predict the future. Prediction's a tricky thing, but predictive analytics, especially when we combine data sets, can really reveal a lot of good information that help us make good decisions. But the next step beyond that is we might predict what is going to happen, but if we can learn how to make something happen through prescriptive analytics, that's even better yet, because it gives us more control of the process. So this 4 components of analytics is really, really important for all of us to consider when we're thinking about our data. And we should tend to move towards adding as much value to the data as we can, which means moving towards, if we can, predictive and prescriptive analytics with a combined valuable data set. And then the final point here is deliver insights. The data itself is not really what we're seeking. It's to be able to use the data to gain insights. Insights typically have to be context-based. So you need to confine those insights to the type of problem or situation that you're looking at. And then we need to deliver those insights in a way that is consumable. And if we can do those things, then we've certainly added value to the data and are in a far better position to economically benefit from it, or what we were calling here monetizing the data. Okay, Justine?
So we have about 3 minutes. So I'm going to talk as fast as I can, but otherwise we can also connect. You have our emails. Feel free to give us a buzz anytime, to call us, to email us. We'll be happy to have a one-on-one discussion with you. One of the important points that Sam and I wanted to make today is that regardless of what industry you are in, you are not that company. You are really a data company. We have on this call, we have people from financial services, we have from healthcare, we have small businesses, we have nonprofits, right? So it's easy for us to classify ourselves as a manufacturing company or as a retail company or as a healthcare organization or as a higher ed. That would be shortchanging our vision as to who we really are. We really are a data company, because today with the digitization at work, everything that is happening, the foundation of the success of your organization depends on data. So Justine, could we just pull up these bullets really quickly on this one? So if you are a data company, then it means that we need to change the way we think about our organizations. We have to think like a data company. We have to act like a data company. We have to invest as if we were a data company, because you're only as successful as the data you have. In countless conversations and surveys, CEOs and senior leaders have said, if only I could lay my hands on the right data for the right decisions at the right time, my life would be so much better. I could do so many wonderful things if only I could do that. And that is across the board, across industries. So basically what they are saying is that regardless of my vision, regardless of my mission, regardless of the business strategy, the business models I have in place, none of those things can be successful if I don't have the right data, because the right data is what is going to fuel your success. And if any of us are hesitant to invest in data, we can rest assured that our competition is investing in data, because data is the easiest path in many ways to achieve great success. We have a couple of more slides, but we are at 3:30 on the hour. So I'd like to stop, and Sam and I would like to take some questions. And again, if you have any questions or if you want a one-on-one discussion with us, we are more than happy to do that as well.
Dean, you're muted.
I saw that. I see I'm muted. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Is great. We appreciate you and Dr. Cooper being on. And we do have one question, and then hopefully some others have been generated. It's from Anne-Marie Schell. As a nonprofit, one of the struggles is to find the best CMR to generate the data that are needed. Do you know of a site that rates systems as far as the ability to extract needed data, not just financial data, but other data that a nonprofit would necessarily need, and how affordable they are?
So all the difficult questions goes to Sam, and all the easy ones I take. Okay, so that's the rule that we follow. So this one I think I can handle, so I'll take this one. So it's a question where we really have to customize the answer. Certainly we can do research into what are all the systems that are available, the pricing and the features. but everything has to be tailor-made in some ways to your organization, your needs, and your audience. So we are more than happy to look into that. The Center for Business Analytics is a great resource. We work with several organizations in the community, and our goal is to serve the community. That's our primary mission at USC Upstate. So we are certainly willing to have a conversation around it. So I don't want to name a few systems, but I think I would like to really look into it and see if we can customize it to meet your unique needs, but more importantly, your budget as well.
Great. Another question from Steve Johnson, but I'm sure every one of us on the call has, this is a kind of a personal concern. How fearful should we be about companies selling our personal data? And, what can we do about it? I mean, you hear all the things, oh, you can opt in, opt out, but, you kind of aren't sure if that really, how impactful that is. And also it's very time consuming to do that for everything that you purchase or anything that you're interested in.
Well, I can give you the short answer and then maybe Sam can take over. The short answer is you must be very, very, very afraid of privacy and of the access that companies have to your data. Sam, do you want to pitch in on that or?
I'm muted here. No, I think you're right there. I mean, ultimately it's up to us to be aware of what we're doing. And just like the example of the loyalty card, many of us really don't think of it in that way. We're getting a discount, but what we're really doing is we're exchanging information about who we are and what we're doing for that discount. So we need to be aware of that. And really, I think it's a self-education process. I know that it's clear to all of us the dangers of our personal information being shared in the wrong places. And we tend to get lax about that. And so to some extent, that's a personal responsibility. Now, with that said, many times these folks stay a step ahead of us. So we have to keep that in mind. But sharing data is a serious business, and some people do it without much thought, even with that loyalty card. Now, I don't think there's a lot of danger in that, but we are revealing something about ourselves with that. When we carry our phones around and all the websites we visit or text, that's potential data about us that people can obtain. And so we have to be aware of that.
I don't know. I told Annalise from our office this the other day. I was sitting here at lunchtime on my computer eating a Nature's Own bar when a pop-up ad for Nature's Own bars came up on my screen. So I think it is absolutely a real thing, and definitely something certainly concerning at times. But I would assume, at least for some of the protections, there are services certainly, and then also you can kind of know when maybe someone is asking for too much data. Isn't that right, Sam?
Yeah, I would hope we could discern that, Dean, and I think many of us can, but some people don't. But yes, and and this is probably going off topic, but my mother's 93 years old. She has trouble with a cell phone, so she has a landline. It rings all day, every day, with people wanting her information. And unfortunately, she doesn't always know not to give it to them.
Right.
And so it is something that we need to discern, but it can be tricky and difficult.
Yes. Well, as we wrap
I just
up,
wanted to, very quickly, I just wanted to add this thought that whatever you think that companies know about you, they know 100 times more about you. So any illusion that we are protecting our data, that we are keeping it secret and nobody has access to it, we really should get out of that world of illusion, because you just have to do a Google search on your name, right? And it's absolutely scary the kind of information that is out there. So the bottom line is companies know a lot more about us than what we think they know. And that's how reality is.
And I'm afraid you're exactly correct, Dr. Gupta. Unfortunately, because that is incredibly
Yes,
scary.
unfortunately.
So as we wrap up today, I did want to tell everybody that we're very excited. This is not the end of the conversation about, the resources available through the work that Dr. Gupta and Dr. Cooper do. We are actually having our Upstate Connect session in September at the George in Spartanburg, where they're going to go through kind of more of the business data and talk. It's going to be about workforce and jobs, and we'll have some other panelists in addition to them, but really to dive a little bit more into that particular component of the data as it relates to the upstate and trends and things we're seeing for data. So I would encourage everyone to join us in Spartanburg in September for that. I think that's going to be a really good session as well. And so we look forward to that. So Dr. Gupta, Dr. Cooper, thank you both so much for being with us today. And we look forward to having you again with us in Spartanburg next month.
Great. Thank you, Dean. We appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity. And I want to say a special thank to Carrie Silver. Carrie Silver, she played an important role in making this happen. So thank you, Carrie.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Carrie. So real quickly, before I turn it over to Justine, we have a lot of stuff going on in the coming few weeks that I wanted to quickly update everyone on. Tomorrow, we will be in Simpsonville for our Upstate Connect for August, looking at downtown developments in Simpsonville or across the upstate, but holding it in downtown Simpsonville. Then on the 22nd, we have our a partnership between the Upstate Mobility Alliance and TATT at the Top is a session on preparing for EVs in the upstate, looking at infrastructure and other things that are going to be needed across the region and obviously across the state and the country as the number of electric vehicles continues to increase. So that is going to be here in our building in the new community space that has opened here. So we're excited to have that on August 22nd, and Riley has just put the link up for that. Then coming up 2 days after that, for all of our funding partners and board members, is our quarterly Pizza and Beer Redefined event that is going to be at Craig Galden Davis offices. And we're really glad to have Megan from the Peace Center talking about their long-range plan. So that'll be coming up on the 24th of August. And then in September, on September 18th, we're holding our regular pizza and beer, our regular Blues, Brews, and Barbecue annual event that we hold in August, September every year. It's going to be at the new Bridgeway Station. It's actually going to be the first event to be held at Bridgeway Station. So we are really excited. Mac Arnold is back again for the third year. We've got great vendors of barbecue and beverages and all kinds of great things, great blues and music. It is designed to be a fun event, but also a networking event. So we'll have a networking expo with nonprofits and some of our funding partners. If you're a nonprofit and you're interested in having a table as part of that and have not already reached out to us, please reach out to either Justine Allen or myself, and we'd be glad to have you as part of that event. And all of our funding partners should have already received information about your tickets. If you are not the top funding partner, the tickets are, Justine, 35, is that right? 30 or 35? 30? Anyway, very inexpensive for having pizza and beer or barbecue and beer and blues and all kinds of things. So it's going to be a great event. With that, I will turn it over to Justine, who will introduce our resource updates.
Thanks, Dean. Hey, everyone. I did want to just thank again Uma and Sam and point out that the Center for Business Analytics and Community Research is a wonderful page on the USC Upstate website. So I put a link directly to that in the chat. But it's amazing all the resources that are there, and they're such lovely people, and I'm sure they'd be delighted to help you with anything you have questions about. Thanks so much again. Okay, so let us introduce our resource updates. Chris Sermons is he's got a meeting he needs to go to, so we're letting him kick it off, and we are really looking forward to hearing about BioWay Farm. You're muted. I feel like there should be a softer way to say it, a little side.
My internet connection is unstable, so hopefully.
Oh, feel free to turn off your video if you think that helps you, and we can just look at each other.
Okay, no worries. Thanks for having me. And hello, everyone. Again, my name's Chris Sermons, and I am the owner manager of BioWay Farm here. Our 100.
Hey, Chris, you are kind of going in and out, so we might need to do the no video.
There we go. So as I was saying, the farm is a 120-acre farm. We're a certified organic market farm. Market farm meaning that we are selling direct to the public as much as possible. We do a little wholesale, but that basically means we're selling at farmers markets, but we actually only do one farmers market, the Saturday market downtown Greenville, the TD Saturday market, as well as a CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture, which is the most direct way to support farms, local farms, and your local food system. So in addition to that, we also have a farm stand up on US 25. We're about 3 miles outside of Lawrence County, Greenville County, in Lawrence County, in the Ware Shoals area. And that is on the honor system because we don't have the personnel to keep it staffed, but it works for us. We also sell to farm-to-table restaurants in the Greenville area, such as the Stella's restaurants that you may be familiar with in Simpsonville and over off of Verde. So 5 acres is what which doesn't sound like right now. There's a lot of production coming in. It's been hot. We've had plenty of more.
Hey, Chris, if you can hear me and you have time, you could try calling in. We can share the number so they have the phone number. We might have more luck with that. We might have lost him.
I think we lost him
completely. All right, well, we'll work on that and see if we can get him on the phone. And in the meantime, Dana's ready, I know. We always love hearing what's going on at Center for Developmental Services. So thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Justine, for inviting me. And there's actually quite a few wonderful, friendly faces that and names that I'm recognizing on here. So this is a great group. Those who don't know me, I'm Dana McConnell. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Developmental Services. And we are located in downtown Greenville on Academy Street. So those of you who are in Easley, Pickens, Clemson, you just take 123 right into Greenville and it turns into Academy, and that'll be us. So we are a unique nonprofit in literally the nation. There's no other organization like ours that exists anywhere. And what we do is we bring multiple disability services to one location. And all those services really help families who have children with developmental delays and disabilities. So for example, a family who has a child with a delay or disability can come here for developmental screenings, diagnosis, ABA therapy, physical therapy, speech, occupational therapy, audiology, psychology, early intervention, case management. There's a medically fragile daycare on site for children who can't go to a regular daycare because they have a heart monitor, ventilator, feeding tubes, or seizures. And there's also some family support. So it's just incredible the amount of resources that are available here in our community. But it's hard to explain all that. So we want you to physically come see us. So I am personally inviting you guys all to come see us, see our facility, come for a tour. I put my information on the website so that you can contact me, and I'd love to get you in for a tour. But quickly, I still want to talk about the impact of what we do. So we serve over 8,000 children every year. So some of these children will come to us maybe once or twice a year for an evaluation or diagnosis. Some who come to that medically fragile daycare can come every day, but most of them will come once a week for therapy. And then after those pediatric services, they can go into our case management, and that serves individuals with lifelong disabilities, you know, the spina bifida or autism, Down syndrome. They're just not going to outgrow that. That's something that's going to be lifelong and needs some wraparound services. So as the discussion, absolutely wonderful today with monetizing data. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about ways that y'all can get involved, either from a volunteer capacity or by just getting involved with some events. So we do have 2 events coming up. The first is our Eggs Benefit. This is a great breakfast that does not take much of your time because you can get there at 7:30 in the morning, eat a great breakfast. It'll be on September 28th. It's a Thursday morning at the Poinsett Club. So there's no cost to attend at all. You come get a great breakfast. We'll have you out of there in an hour so it doesn't disrupt your day. And you will hear all about CDS and know the impact in our community. Our speaker is going to be Mike Hayes. I don't know if y'all remember him. He used to be the general manager at WYFF here in Greenville, and now is just such a big shot up in New York, president of Hearst Television. So we're very excited about that. And the other event, if you're not a morning person, you can do a golf tournament, and that's also on our website. That will be on Friday, October 20th at the Preserve at Verde. So come check us out, get a tour, get involved. We'd love to have you.
So Dana, will you talk very quickly about the new service that you all have added? Because I think that's real exciting to show that. I mean, you've had a lot of services there for a long time, but now you have something additional available for families.
That's right. Thank you so much, Dean. So our partnership has some great partners here, and it's not often that we get to bring a new partner into our building, and we've recently done that with Project Hope Foundation. They provide ABA therapy for children who have autism, and it is just such a needed service, and we are just super excited that they're joining us. So they started getting all the IT stuff into the building over the last few weeks, and I think they will start doing therapy either next week or the week after that. So Project Hope Foundation is a wonderful asset. We're so excited that they're coming in. Thank you, Dean.
Great, thank you.
All righty. Thank you so much. We have reached out to Chris to see if he might call in, but I haven't seen him do that yet. And he did have something he had to attend at 4. So Riley put the information about BioWay Farm in the chat, and the website is beautiful, and they do a couple neat different things. I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't say they do have on-farm learning and podcast, and do some worldwide opportunities for organic farms. It looks really neat, as well as internships. So if you have a person in your family who's interested in the ag business, there you go. Okay. Couple minutes back for your day. Sorry, David, you say that. I don't say you have a couple minutes back in your day. Next TAT chat, though, I can say is September 14th. And we are looking forward to hearing from George Shira with Milliken.
Yep.
Back
Absolutely.
to you, David.
Yeah, thank you, Justine. Great closeout. You did take my phrase. So I'll just thank Drs. Sam Cooper, Uma Gupta. We appreciate you guys being on and sharing the information on the data and particularly the terrifying close that you used at the end of your remarks. That's good warnings. Sorry we couldn't hear more from Chris Sermons with Byway Farms, and Dana McConnell, thank you. Thank you for being on, for doing what you do with the CDS. Go on a tour, take her up on the offer, go see the facility. It is fantastic there. They do great stuff for our community and 8,000 kids a year. So go do the tour, go play in the golf tournament, do what you can. Thank you, Dana. And we will see you guys in 30 days for the next TAT chat, if not sooner.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.